Vinegar plays an important role in my kitchen, not only for the acidic pop it adds to my culinary creations, but it also has the ability to work as a solvent and to help make extractions. Now, as you can see right here, I have 3 different extractions that I've made using apple cider vinegar. Because of the low pH that most vinegars have, but especially apple cider vinegar, the low pH allows this to work sort of like an alcohol would make a tincture. So in most culinary applications, when I'm making savory food, using a tincture to flavor something isn't really practical. And so having vinegar and that unpasteurized apple cider vinegar with a very low pH, it allows me to withdraw flavors from ingredients like burdock root, from shallots, even herbs like thyme, basil, or oregano. It's really cool because then I have this array of different flavorings, and cooking every day, I use vinegar every day, and why not have a different variety? And not only does it add a great flavor, but it also adds that medicinal component as well. So we create this sort of well-diversified ingredient list that we have, and we get lots of different medicines and lots of different flavors. So today I want to show you how to make your own vinegar extraction. The great thing about making vinegar extractions is you don't need a recipe. Really, all you need to do is chop up this stuff, put it into a jar, completely cover it with apple cider vinegar, cover it, put a label on it, and let it sit for a couple weeks. That's going to give you a great flavor, and it's super simple, doesn't require much thinking. Once you get into doing this often and you want to get a specific flavor, or you're working with different combinations of ingredients, you could start working with ratios and selective ingredients. But really, all you gotta do is cover it. So that's the simple part, and that's what makes this so easy for me to do throughout the year. As you can see here, I have just straight apple cider vinegar, I have mulberry vinegar, I have herb vinegar, which is this one right here, and I also have a horseradish vinegar. And mostly all the ingredients, besides the vinegar, comes from the land. So when it's blueberry season, I have some extra blueberries I've picked, I'll put it into vinegar. Pick up a bunch of horseradish in the fall, submerge it in vinegar. Mulberries, again, in July and August when they're in season here, put a few aside and turn it into vinegar. This was a garlic scape vinegar that I did, and part of growing your own garlic is removing the scapes in usually late June or July, and then these scapes, which would have been the tops, or are the tops, got submerged in vinegar, and now I have a nice half gallon of garlic infused vinegar. That's the beauty of using vinegar as an extraction, because it allows you to get tons of different flavors, withdraw all that medicine, and withdraw all that flavor. Now we're going to make our sort of liver-friendly root vinegar, and that's going to feature burdock root, which is a wild plant that grows all over my property. And in the spring, you could pull up these plants and roots that could be upwards of 3 feet long, and has a known ability to help cleanse the liver. Next, we're going to add some dandelion root, which I also harvested here in the fall, and like the burdock, has liver cleansing ability. And so this vinegar is going to make a really nice sort of spring liver tonic cleansing vinegar, but also has great flavor. We're going to add a little bit of thyme for its antimicrobial properties, but also its flavor, and we're going to add a little bit of shallot for that sweetness and sort of sulfury bit that it adds as well. So the key here when we're making this is to get everything chopped up as finely as possible. You could run it through a food processor, you can grate it, or you could just slice it really thin, because you want as much surface area as possible. If you throw in big chunks, you'll really never penetrate into the core of that, so you're sort of wasting the product. If you slice it nice and thin, lots of surface area, all those nutrients, all that flavor are going to be pulled out by that low pH apple cider vinegar. Now we're just going to go through all of our ingredients and just, again, slice them super thin, and then we're going to get them into our sterilized mason jar. I use this cool canning funnel to help get everything in with ease. And that's it. Chop it up super thin, and get it all into the jar. If you pick the burdock root in the right time of the year, you could actually eat this root, and what you would do is sort of peel away this outer edge, and then you peel that all back, kind of comes back sort of like how celery is formed. And then that inner core could be used in stir fries, or you could marinate it. And I know people will marinate it in soy sauce, and then they'll dehydrate it, and it makes sort of like a burdock jerky sort of flavor. But really nice wild food, and again has that liver assisting property, which is really great after a taxing winter. So we have about 1.5 cups of product in here, and that again was the shallot, the sliced burdock root, the chopped thyme, and about 2 tablespoons of our dandelion root. And now all we're going to do is top that with vinegar. Normally a basic ratio I do is about 2 to 1. So if I have 1 cup of material, the chopped product, I'm going to add about 2 cups of the vinegar. Normally I make them small batches, usually in a quart jar. So I put a little less than 2 cups of ingredients, and then I'm just going to fill it right to the top with unpasteurized apple cider vinegar. I'm very fortunate to have an organic unpasteurized apple cider vinegar product here in Maine, but there's other good companies like Bragg's that you can find, all over the United States, and if depending where you live, you could probably find some local products as well. Now, what we're going to do, because this is a vinegar and it has a low pH, it will actually melt or rust metal. So what I like to do is take a little bit of parchment paper, or you could use wax paper, and then I'm going to do that. I've already popped a lid on top and put the date on there, put a little name on there, and then I'm going to add the lid. And so this will keep the lid from getting rusty, because sometimes you can't really open it. So what we're going to do is stick this in the corner of my kitchen, likely up in my pantry, and I'm going to give this 2 weeks to infuse. I'm then going to give it a little taste, see where it's at, and then because I usually have a lot of things already available to use, I'll let this go a little longer. So I'll usually let everything go about a month, and then after that, I'm going to just strain this into a clean jar. I like to save my kombucha bottles that I buy and use those for my flavored vinegars. And so again, I'm just going to strain that into a clean jar. Sometimes, depending on what the ingredient is, I'll do a second pour over. So I'll take all this, all the ingredients that have been strained out. I'll pour another round of vinegar and let that infuse a little longer. It usually makes a little more subtle flavors, not as intense as the first batch, but it just allows me to just get as much flavor and nutrition out of those ingredients as possible. And then you have yourself a beautiful vinegar. Doesn't need to be refrigerated. Yeah, pretty much lasts indefinitely. One thing to tell you that before you make any vinegars, although it is a low pH, you don't necessarily have to worry about any foodborne illness or botulism like you would with oil infusions. But you don't want to start with any ingredient that's wet from being washed. If you picked fresh herbs in the morning and it had dew all over them, you would want to let them dry completely before they go into the vinegar. So you want to let as little water to go into that vinegar as possible. So fresh ingredients will work. You just want to make sure there's no visible moisture on the surface of those ingredients. And then, bada bing, you got yourself some flavored vinegar, and look forward to hearing how you incorporate it into your diet on a daily basis. So there you go.